Back up. We're going to go back to our panel. Paul Henry joins us again. Kia ora, Paul.
Yes.
And Professor Robert Padman is in also. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm very interested in your take on this. How do you think the world is reacting to the state of play right now with the American election?
Well, I think former Prime Minister Jim Bolger nailed it. And I think he said that, a superpower which is a liberal democracy is an exemplar for the rest of the world. And I think, unfortunately, that status is rapidly diminishing, particularly amongst fellow democracies. In other words, I think the countries of the EU, Scandinavia, Australia, New Zealand and Canada, if this sort of situation continues, where you have a breakdown, it seems to me what we're witnessing in the United States is, at least on one side, a disrespect for the sanctity of the rule of law. And I think that's, a danger signal for America's superpower status and its moral authority in the world. And I think I think what we're witnessing here is an America which is, like all states in the world, America is confronted with problems which involve international solutions, and yet America seems to be going in the opposite direction of retreat and isolation. And therefore, is minimising its influence in the process.
Having said that, that is part of Trump's policy. I mean, he's an isolationist, isn't he? Yeah. I mean, and the interesting thing is, I mean, when Trump goes eventually, whether it's this time or next time, this will revert very, very quickly, I think. There's some feeling that there's long-term damage being done to the reputation, but I think that will spin on a dime.
I'm not sure about that, Paul, because I think that America, I agree with you, America's got the ability to bounce back and reassert itself under new leadership. But I don't think we should underestimate the fact that America, in a sense, has made itself marginalised. Where was the United States? Did it lead a global response to COVID-19? It wasn't. It was missing in action. And this registered with a lot of people.
32,000 deaths and 9.42 million cases.
But we're not really seeing that play out in the election. You know, everyone was, well, if you're a Democrat, you were hoping that there would be a Biden landslide.
It matters to Democrats, but it doesn't matter to Republicans. They are able to apologise for it.
Robert, you made the point earlier, it's almost like they were running into completely different dimensions, the different races. They were not speaking to each other.
Great powers often decline when you had that degree of domestic splits. And I think Paul's point is really important, that America, while it remains a democracy, has the capacity to bounce back. But I think this is a crucial moment in America's history in the 21st century.
What do the both of you make about the moves that, in particular, the Republican Party have made to... They've gone to the Supreme Court to try and make sure that votes aren't counted if they don't come in today. So Pennsylvania...
It's preemptive strikes, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they're making I mean, both sides. And both sides are, I think it would be fair to say, equally as litigious. And they've both made their moves. They're both setting a framework for litigation going into the next week, going into the next couple of weeks.
Sure,
but it won't go on for too long.
It's supposed to be the greatest democracy on earth, right? That's what we hear about America, but it seems to be a country that does not want to count everybody's votes. And if I was an American, I would be deeply upset about that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that Mr. Trump has shown himself, he's been very partisan throughout his leadership. But I think preventing votes being counted through legal means will backfire. And I think it's dangerous. Just imagine how outraged people will be if their votes simply do not count, and that you have victory, without due process being respected.
And mainly we're talking about Pennsylvania here. That's the state that's most likely to end up in the courts at some point.
It's already in the courts.
It's already,
it's arguably already in the courts.
This is the state that Trump said the decision by the Supreme Court to say that votes could be counted up until 3 days afterwards, that it would lead to violence and be dangerous.
Well, however, the Supreme Court ended that ruling by saying they were happy to revisit it. I mean, what a ludicrous... I mean, what kind of Clayton's ruling is that?
That is just going to lead to many, many more days in court, isn't it?
It is. Well, we just had a live shot of the East Room. That was in the White House, where we're expecting President Trump to speak any moment now. And, of course, we will cross live to that scene as soon as he walks on stage. But first, we are going to go to Tova O'Brien, who is at our lovely Viz Wall. Tova, what have you got for us now?
I think it's probably time that we hone in on Georgia, because it's been a bit of a talking point. Georgia, not only the state that brought us Coca-Cola, it's
Fun fact.
Fun fact, in 1886, it is also the state that looks to be delivering another Republican president. It has been traditionally Republican. It's only considered a swing state because Joe Biden has been polling so well here. It hasn't voted for a Democratic candidate since 1994. At the moment, it is leaning towards Donald Trump. It is one of those pale pink states, and we'll have more on the numbers from Georgia for you shortly.
OK, Tova, thank you very much. We just need to take stock, don't we, of where we are.
The interesting thing is we're waiting on Trump to speak.
I know, yes, yeah.
But we have no idea what he's going to say. And that,
do you think he does, though?
Trump.
Does Trump know what he's going to say right now?
Well, I think he does, but I think the point I'd like to add to a discussion earlier is that if Mr. Trump doesn't respect due process, the voting process, he's playing into the hands of authoritarian states around the world. And I think that's what I meant by the decline of American power, that, you know, it would empower the authoritarian states in the world.
A little bit of movement there at the White House. Oh,
just three of his many advisors.
The one thing we know is that when Trump speaks, he is going to speak with confidence that it's in the bag.
He has never taken a backward step his entire presidency, has he?
Even if Biden had 270, he would still come out tonight potentially and say that he was winning it. That's what Trump always does.
He might potentially admit there were some slight problems if Biden had 270. But I think we're about to see Trump come out with one or another version of victory speech.
Yeah. So who's he talking to when he comes out? Is he talking to all the Fox News viewers to say, stick with me, I've got this? Or is he speaking
to... Is he talking to his lawyers?
Yeah. Or is he speaking to the wider, American public as the president and, I'm going to be here for another 4 years, I'm not going anywhere?
I think he's showing his cards. In a moment, he will show his cards. And, I mean, I don't know, Robert, do you agree? I think that in one way or another, he is going to come out and claim victory.
I think he will, but I think he will also remind people that he's given dire warnings over many months about the potential for fraud in mail ballots. And he'll be saying, I warned you this might happen, and now we may be about to witness votes being stolen.
Why are the Republicans so desperate not to have Arizona declared?
Well, I think that's part of the narrative. It undermines the narrative that it's been a Republican state, and it shows that Biden's actually much more competitive than the sort of Sleepy Joe narrative that have been attributed to him. So I suppose it, in a sense, given Biden's confidence when he made his statement tonight, I think when you add those things up, I think Mr. Trump and his team were anxious to deny progress made in Arizona because it reinforces the idea that this is far from over and that the early progress that the Republicans made may be reversed when some of those delayed votes come in.
It's interesting that globally we have one particular view of the United States and New Zealand, as do other countries around the world. But domestically, you look at the way we look at Trump and Trump's performance, and then you look at the vote turnout for him. Already, how many tens upon tens of millions of people have voted for Trump after 4 years of the behaviour that he's...
That's right.
4 years of Trump,
Well, he won by a bigger margin in Florida than last time.
All right,
Absolutely.